Anybody there? Can you hear me? Normally it takes a few times, or not even a few times. It takes a few seconds for me to notice that there's actually any viewers. So the first, I don't know, maybe a minute, maybe 30 seconds, I always feel like I'm alone. Like I'm just talking to an empty room, to an empty mic. No one's really here? And I can't tell if you're here or not until the thing pops up. So we're just gonna chill for a second. Welcome. If you're hopping into the stream, I'm Star Wars Only, your host of the Q&A, the live Star Wars Only Q&A. I'm using StreamYard, and I wish we could we could change up the. Oh my God! You see what happens is I get like a big burst of comments out of nowhere, and then it pops up. You got 17 viewers at the moment. So yeah, it takes about close to a minute for me to actually see anything. I've never watched Smallville. Don't plan on it. And yeah, you're right. The FBI is always with me. And big shout out to the FBI. And this channel sponsors the U.S. government. I'm I'm hopping like bunny in heat. What? Don't get it. Don't get it. But I will take it. I wish I could show like not my little thing right here where you just see my bubble of talk, my speech bubble move constantly. I wish I could show you the backgrounds. I mean, I can show you certain images that I want, all that, which is cool, but I don't want to just show you these images. I actually wanted the background to be there as well. Let's see. Opinion on Blade Runner 2049. I've never seen a single Blade Runner, and if anything, this is why I title myself Star Wars Only, so you guys can kind of know what general questions to ask. I'm not teasing you. I'm teasing myself of my lack of knowledge on a lot of other things I should be watching. Lucas asked, do you think EA will make a new pod racer game since they said they will be open to make more Star Wars games? That's a good question. Another pod racer game. I don't recall the first one being that successful back in my day, which it's weird saying. I'm only 21, guys. I don't really have a back in the day kind of thing, but through my teenage years and mainly through the ages of 5 to 10, I would say I remember going to places like a Main Event or Dave and Buster's is a popular one across America, but Main Event is what we used to do out here in Texas. And EA, well, not EA, there was that Star Wars pod racer game that they always had for episode 1, and it was not amazing, but it was pretty fun for what it was. Do I think they're going to make a console game like that? No, not any. I just think that the market and the capability that we have now with video games, it would just be way too small for them to make another pod racer game. If it's a mobile game, sure, or maybe a very small scale Star Wars game. If it was free, then sure. But other than that, no, I really don't think so. What games do you play not Star Wars related? Me and my girlfriend have been playing this game. It's decently popular, I guess. It's called Dead by Daylight. I've been playing it for the past week or so. Not going to lie, I don't love it. I think the mechanics are a little bit iffy. I think the gameplay for the game isn't the best in the world. But my girlfriend likes playing with me, and it's fun. I mean, I'm not going to say it's not fun, but it's only fun because I have her to play it with. If I play by myself, I normally notice I get a little frustrated. So not my biggest cup of tea, but recently UFC 3, big UFC and boxing fan myself, and also bought Doom Eternal not too long ago. Oh, and they came out with the remastered SpongeBob game from my childhood as well. Just bought that boy for like $30 last night. So yeah, those are some of the games I played. I used to play religiously Overwatch. I used to be a really big Overwatch player. Really good too, mainly on a PS4, and I was a Diva main, so I guess I wasn't that good, but yeah, that's what I used to do. Gamer Max, I don't know how to say it, Man X 9000. Sometimes you guys got to make really creative names. Have you seen Sean Chandler's How to Fix the Phantom Menace? If it's an older video from like 2010 to 2016, yes. Anything beyond that, probably not. Have you ever eaten food? I am from Texas. All we do is eat food here. Star Wars Only. I don't know what the freak your problem is. Actually, do I have the picture for that? Do I not have it? Oh, I don't have it. I have in the background one. Don't have it in the OG one. Actually, I'll show you you guys some fan art people have made for me for the channel, I guess, if you will. I haven't gotten many of these in feels like a year now, over a year. But that one's always a funny one. I really like that one. What do you think about the sequels 1 out of a 10? Oh, geez. That's not what I would think about them. That's rating them. If I had to rate the Star Wars sequels, I would say from a 1 to 10, I'd give them a 5. Just a 5, right in the middle. Right in the middle. They tried and they didn't do that great. Are you excited for the new Squadrons? And he's talking about the newest game by EA. EA, is making another Star Wars game. Do I have Star Wars Squadrons even up here ready to go? Oh, yes, I do. What do you know? Look at that. I am excited for Star Wars Squadrons. And I don't know if that's a hot take, if that's controversial. I feel hypocritical after the video I put out today criticizing EA's new comments. The CEO, Andrew Wilson, his new comments. Really didn't like what he had to say about how we're going to double down on Star Wars games. But we're only going to double down now that we've kind of gotten the formula down a little better. We realized no microtransactions. We realized people like a single-player story-driven campaign and all that. Now that they've spent 7 years not doing a damn thing, they're like, all right, well, let's start making some more Star Wars games. Squadrons, in my opinion, is a step in the right direction for EA. Say everything that I said about them today and what I just said, say what you will. After Jedi Fallen Order, coming out with another Star Wars game that's $40, that has a single-player story-driven game where it's a few hours, not long, but it's a story-driven multiplayer game. No, I'm saying that wrong. It is a multiplayer-driven game with a little bit of story in there, with a little bit of single-player for the campaign. And I think that's good. I think charging it at $40 is the perfect price. No microtransactions. This being primarily multiplayer to kind of come off the back of Battlefront 2 wrapping things up. I mean, they just stopped updating that religiously. And that's doing a lot better than, I think, like Battlefield 1, the most recent Battlefield game. I don't know who plays those anymore either. But I do think Star Wars Squadrons is a step in the right direction for EA. But they have to continue down that path. A step is not a run, it's not a leap, it's not a walk, it's not multiple steps in the right direction. It's one singular step in the right direction after coming off of Jedi Fallen Order, which was a great step in the right direction, a big step, leaps and bounds. This is another step that way. And I think what really will prove EA in terms of merit for Star Wars fans is what comes after this. Let's say EA comes out with Jedi Fallen Order 2 in 2022. We know that's happening. We know there's going to be a Jedi Fallen Order sequel in 2022. But will there be another Star Wars game in 2021? Right now, I don't think so. After this, I don't think so. But even if they don't, let's say the deal gets extended. Well, actually, let's not say the deal gets extended. If it gets extended past 2023, sure thing. But they can still come out with another Star Wars game in 2023. So what's after Jedi Fallen Order number 2? That's where I really want to see where their creativity is, because it's easy to just say, oh, we're going to make a sequel to the most popular game that we've had. It's not easy to go, well, now we're going to do something different. Squadrons is a little different, but it's also kind of like an extra arm to Battlefront 2. I want to see something completely new and different when they're done with Squadrons and Jedi Fallen Order number 2. I'm interested to see what they can do after this. Watch the original Blade Runner, put it in fast forward, and you got yourself a fast-paced, more Star Wars-paced, futuristic romp there. I'll probably just watch it as normal. I mean, I know it's a very popular, very popular series. There's also a Star Trek only YouTube. Oh, is there also a Star Trek only YouTube channel? I don't know if there is. Godspeed to him. I've tried watching the very first Star Trek, like the first one that was ever made. Couldn't get past 10 minutes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Use Ryan Johnson as your background, gain more views. Yeah, you know what? I could have just put Ryan Johnson's name in the title, and I guarantee you the views would have gone up. Look at that man. That's not a good picture of him. That's a good one. That's my favorite. That's probably my favorite picture of Ryan Johnson, with the Last Jedi kind of a background fading into it a little bit. You see how it's got a little bit of the wall and a little bit of the stars mixing in right there. Decent little editing right there on the guy who's running the Photoshop for that. But yeah, Ryan Johnson, popular figure, popular guy to talk about in this beautiful, beautiful fan base we call Star Wars. Jesus, the comments are coming up a lot. What do you think of the new Star Wars original trilogy 4K project? I haven't checked it out yet. I normally don't have time. I don't know. It's one of those things where I have the original Star Wars films, not on 4K, of course, not on DVD version, not the unaltered versions, but I do have the VHS tape. So it's like Lucas has really done a good job on making it a hassle to watch the original Star Wars films.
I may have gone too far in a few places.
And yeah, I mean it's true though. I mean I think he went a little too far with those special edition things, and we're going to be debating that till the day I die, I guess. Are you disappointed that Star Wars Celebration is canceled, or do you cosplay? Well, I can answer both of those. I am sad that Star Wars Celebration is canceled. Oh, see, this is why I wanted the background. If I had a starry background, you wouldn't be seeing this weird Star Wars only over Anaheim 2020 thing. But besides the point, yeah, Star Wars Celebration is canceled. Here's a better one. Boom, perfect. Star Wars Celebration is canceled. It was supposed to happen this August 27th through 30th in Anaheim, California, and it's being postponed. 2 years, literally at the exact same venue on pretty much the exact same dates, but in 2022. And what's weird about that is that the 2020-22 Star Wars film is rumored to be canceled. So what are we celebrating that year? I mean, there might be some new games for sure, but if it's in August and the next film was supposed to come out in December of 2022, you're either marketing that film 3 months before it comes out, or you're getting ready for future projects that aren't. I mean, I really don't know what the plan is with Celebration at being in 2022 right now. I could have seen them doing this and postponing it till April of 2021. But then after that, it's also with the virus, and you never really know. I'm disappointed that they canceled Star Wars Celebration. I do not cosplay. I just find it a large chunk of time that I do not have. And also my big thing is I go there normally to cover things, to be media, and cosplaying would be another layer to that celebration, which is already extremely busy for me. Is it Kari? Kari Williams says, what's better, the prequels or the sequels? Ooh, I want to see your guys' reactions to my thought. No, I already know that I really don't care what you guys think I have to say on this, because I mean, for me, before The Rise of Skywalker came out, my big thing was when it came to the sequels versus the prequels, I wish I could just have a good picture to show of both of them. I guess not. I guess I deleted a lot of the pictures I had up here already. I'm terribly sorry about that. Let's see if I can just put one. Oh, I guess not. You guys are out of luck. Sorry about that. No, I'll keep looking through them. The prequels versus sequels. The reason I had a hard problem with this before Rise of Skywalker came out was I liked The Force Awakens, and that's kind of like the one from the sequels I still decently like. And then I really only like one movie from the prequels, which is Revenge of the Sith. But when I say I like Revenge of the Sith, I mean I actually like that a lot more than I do The Force Awakens. And I also like it better than the other two Star Wars films from the sequel trilogy. But that doesn't mean it's the perfect film either. It doesn't mean it makes up for the faults of the other two films in the prequels with the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. Phantom Menace truly has grown on me over the past, I want to say 3 years, maybe 2. It's grown on me a lot, but if I'm gonna have to pick, but if you put a gun in my head and say which do you truly think is better, the sequels or the prequels, I'm gonna say the prequels, just because I feel like the story is a little bit better tied together, at least between those three. Here we go. I got one for the Star Wars saga. Boom! Look at that. That's hot. That's pretty hot. I think the prequels told their story better than what the sequels did, and I do feel like, unlike the prequels did kind of shit on the original trilogy in many ways, but since they came before the original trilogy, it's kind of hard to ruin some of that story. Don't get me wrong, it did in some sense, but it also didn't destroy the franchise. I don't think the sequels did. Don't think I'm trying to make that point in a second. But what I'm saying is, when it comes to legacy characters like Luke Skywalker, Leia, and Han Solo, the way we wanted their stories to end and the way they ended in the sequel trilogy are completely different, and I really think they did the original characters dirty with the new films, and I think they rushed them. I don't think the prequels were rushed. I think the prequels lacked from storytelling and proper writing. I mean, it really was just George Lucas not bringing in someone else to write the script, other than for Attack of the Clones, who was also a guy who didn't really have a history and a knack for these kind of things. So I do think the prequels beat the sequels in a lot of senses, but that to me, it's like comparing a really bad drink to a drink that you like once a month, but you don't really want to drink it. It's you love to hate it kind of thing. I don't know. It's hard to really explain my feelings on the prequels nowadays. Mainly after the sequel trilogy came out, that really changed everything for me. Star Wars Only's got a girlfriend. Yes, sir. Star Wars Only is no longer lonely. Phase 1 or Phase 2 armor? Gonna be honest, I don't care. What do you think of Revenge of the Sith? Sometimes I see this and I want to say Rise of Skywalker. Revenge of the Sith, I think it is the best of the prequels, but does that make it the best Star Wars film? No. Is it a good film? No. Is it a fun and good movie? Yes. Sometimes you gotta separate the two. You gotta know the difference between a film and a movie. Sometimes a movie is just something you go to the movies to see, and it's just fun, and you have a good time, and you really enjoy it. A film makes you think about it. I just got done watching The Irishman again. It's like the 5th time I've seen that film. That's a film, You actually sit there and you think about it. You think about the shots and the camera angles they go for, and each scene and the subtleties to it. You don't really get that a lot with Revenge of the Sith, in my opinion. I think some fans like to think they do. I think some fans look at Revenge of the Sith and say, "Oh, because of the memes, this is truly the best film that we have to offer in the Star Wars franchise." No, you don't. Well, one thing I do think is interesting topic we could say we could one day debate is if people are obligated, though, to like the original trilogy. I know you don't like Lego Star Wars 3, but worst Legos game is Lego Indy 2. That is true. I do not like Lego Star Wars number 3. I thought that was a really, really bad one. And I remember playing that when it originally came out and being like, what the hell? What happened? You guys were doing so good, and you dropped it. You dropped the ball. Never played Lego Indiana Jones 1 or 2, so I'm going to take your word for it. I truly am. Have you seen the Who? Oh, Neon Noir fan edit of the prequels, really good. If you haven't already, I haven't, but I'll give it a shot. I mean, I like fan edits. I'm being honest. I've had multiple people personally email me. By the way, guys, don't email me. Just don't. It's weird when you do. Sometimes I appreciate it. Sometimes there's kind words, but sometimes some of the emails I get, I'm just like, why? Why did you take the time to do this to me? Some people have emailed me fan edits that are really, really good. And some of them have been pretty bad, but there was 1 or 2 that really took out the comedy out of The Force Awakens, and I thought it was a much better paced movie and really well put together. So some fan edits really have a soft spot in my heart. And one thing I really want to get my hands on is the Phantom edit. It was the one from 2001, I think is when that came out. It was either 2001 or 2000, and even Lucas himself wanted to see the fan edit until people started selling it illegally. What do you think about the recent report from Doomcock? Oh God. No, here we already go. That they're going to get rid of the sequel trilogy using the Veil of the Force. I would personally love that. Hey, no offense, guys. If you take anything Doomcock says with any credibility, just stop watching Star Wars and don't even watch the channel anymore, guys. That man has came up like with some of the dumbest conspiracy theories ever. Literally, that's just a group think channel over there of the sequel trilogy bad, and we're gonna have you ever realized all the inside reports that this guy's come out with is nothing but negative about the new Star Wars films? It's clear that there's a narrative being driven by that channel, and it's kind of sad and pathetic that so many people believe all the stuff that he's come out with, and just in general. I mean, the whole Kathleen Kennedy being banned from Mandalorian season 2 set, that's not how any of this that would never the fact that anybody would even believe that, it's one of those things where I hate to be an asshole, but it's like what goes through my mind is like, can you be that stupid? I mean, truly, like, can you really just be? I can't stand it. Do you think the prequels deserve the amount of hate and criticism? Criticism, yes. Hate, no. There's a fine line we have to draw between ourselves here. And one thing that happened with the prequels is that a lot of the betrayal fans feel that they got from the sequel films is the same way a lot of fans felt about the prequel trilogy. Excuse me. And so the prequel trilogy, when that came out, a lot of fans felt like this wasn't Star Wars anymore. It's very glossy. The acting was weird. I don't know anything about the characters, and Darth Vader went from this terrifying, intimidating figure into this whiny 9-year-old boy. Then he became a teenager, and the acting didn't get really better in Attack of the Clones. It wasn't until Revenge of the Sith that people went, oh, okay, these films actually aren't that bad. And it wasn't until Star Wars The Clone Wars came out that people looked at the prequels differently. The prequels have a thing, George Lucas is notorious for doing this with Star Wars, of rewriting history. And with the Clone Wars, we've really rewritten history of the prequels, where now you look at it as all one interconnected story. But before, it was just very odd. They were very awkward films to go on. And even now, people like my age in their 20s and people who are younger really love the prequels and act like they're the best films that Star Wars has come out with. But you talk to people, I would even say go to your dad, someone like my dad. My dad's in his 40s, so he's probably like 45, 46. You go talk to those guys who saw the prequels when they came out. And I remember there was George St. Pierre is a big MMA fighter. When he fought Michael Bisping a few years ago, when he came back and got the middleweight championship, I talked to a few of the guys, and all these guys were in their 30s and 40s, because it's kind of the group of people I normally like to hang out with and drink with. And a bunch of these guys had told me, they were like, yeah, I remember the prequels when they came out. I still don't like them. So while we may like the prequels, and while we may look back at them with a newfound appreciation, a lot of people who grew up with them, a lot of people who were teenagers when they came out, a lot of people who came up with the original trilogy still don't like the films and still criticize them, because they're like, hey, they were films, they were movies, don't get me wrong, but they weren't as memorable and as impactful to the universe and to the culture as the original trilogy of Star Wars was. So they do deserve criticism, but they do not deserve hate. There's also rewriting the history by some prequel fans saying that, like, Jake Lloyd was bullied by prequel haters. No, he was not bullied by prequel haters. Jake Lloyd was bullied by school children, people in high school, young kids who are notoriously not good people because they're young and they're still learning. So the idea that prequel fans are the responsible ones for the tragedy of Jake Lloyd's life is just ridiculous. That's not what happened. Jake Lloyd got bullied at school. He didn't get bullied on the internet by a bunch of Star Wars fans. Now, Ahmed Best got bullied. That's the stuff where the hate came out and where you saw the truly toxic part of the Star Wars community that's been engraved in our fandom since, I'd say, 1997, not 1977. I'm disappointed that Squadrons is set in the originals only. You know what? I understand that criticism, salty pineapples, but I'm gonna counter with this. It's set after the original trilogy, and I think that's worthy of exploring, and I think that's a better route to go than being between episodes 3 and 4, or even during the original trilogy. So the fact that they're going post Return of the Jedi into this 30-year gap between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, episodes 6 and 7, we have a lot to work with there. I can't wait to see them explore more of that. What do you think of Interstellar? That is a film by Christopher Nolan. I remember seeing that film when it first came out in theaters and loving it, and I still love it to this day. I think it's a very good film, and I highly recommend it if you haven't watched it. What is one of your favorite Star Wars games? Ooh, one of my favorites. Well, I mean, I guess you can't go wrong with the OG of the original Battlefront 2. That one is got a soft spot in my heart, if you will. But recently, I'll admit, Jedi Fallen Order has been pretty great, but it's not the best Star Wars game that's ever come out. Top 5 for sure. But I think for me, number 1 is either going to be Battlefront 2 from 2005 or Knights of the Old Republic, the first one. The story in that game and the MMO aspect of it, it's just perfection. Do I love Indiana Jones? I really like it. I haven't seen them enough to say I love them yet. I still need to watch them a few more times, and preferably sober the next few times, so I can actually know them and think about them and love them. I'm trying to go through some of these comments. They're getting ahead of me. Do you have a favorite character of all time? Not of all time. Maybe for Star Wars, I have a Luke Skywalker. But other than that, I don't know. Did you know that Dave Filoni used to work on Avatar: The Last Airbender? Yes, I do know that. I don't know what's going on. I put up an Instagram post about him, and I put up an Instagram post about The Last Jedi. Not The Last Jedi. Oh boy, The Last Airbender and Star Wars, The Clone Wars. And people in the comments were like, yeah, and they're awesome because Dave Filoni made both of them. It's like, no, Dave Filoni didn't make Avatar: The Last Airbender. He also didn't really do too much on the series. He worked on the first few episodes in like season 1. So I'm glad he worked on it. I'm not coming at you, Julian, but I'm just saying that a lot of fans have this misconception that Dave Filoni like made Avatar: The Last Airbender. Am I thick? Ooh, not even just thick. Like he put the all caps. No, I'm not thick, but I'm not like a toothpick either. You know, I'm just kind of I'm in the middle. I'm fit, leanish, not really. I don't know. What are you most excited for Star Wars this year? Honestly, Squadrons. What else is there to be excited for in Star Wars? The year's 2020. What's coming out? Anyone have any ideas? Is that Thrawn book coming out sometime this year? I guess we're getting High Republic later this year, which will be a kind of nice. But I mean, other than that, we're not getting too much. Do you think we might get too much Ahsoka? This is something I've been talking about for a little bit. Is that all the reports about what's happening with Ahsoka over there at Lucasfilm are just crazy. Let me see if I can quickly get a picture of Homegirl up there. We're gonna put up the one with her and Rosario Dawson for the Disney Plus series that's rumored to happen. Basically, word on the street is Rosario Dawson is going to be playing live action version of Ahsoka Tano, not Tana. Ha. But basically with Ahsoka, she's supposed to be appearing in season 2 of The Mandalorian, live action, making a cameo with her blue lightsaber and not really looking like Gandalf the Gray anymore, Gandalf the White at the end of Rebels. And this is supposed to be a like launch pad for her own series into Disney Plus, into movies, I guess, maybe a spin-off movie, a spin-off show. I think Leslie Headland is working on her own Star Wars series that's going to be starring Ahsoka Tano. That's my personal hunch. But yeah, right now we've been told that we're going to get Ahsoka in the Rebels animated sequel, and then live action version of The Mandalorian season 2, and then a live action show and series. I just think that's a lot, and I like her character. But we got her in Rebels. We just finished up her arc in Clone Wars. It's just a lot. It's a lot. Z Malik 7 says, "Why should we trust your sources at Lucasfilm?" Well, that's because I don't really claim to have sources at Lucasfilm, do I? I have people who are in the know on certain things for sure, but I don't really come at you with a lot of these reports like some people do, who are like, Kathleen Kennedy was banned from set of season 2 of The Mandalorian. It's like, how can you prove that? Well, I have sources on it. It's like, no, besides your sources, how can you physically prove that? It's like the new reports that we came out with last week or something where Kessel Run Radio, those guys came out with saying that there's going to be a Bad Batch series coming to Disney Plus, an animated series about the Bad Batch. And there's also going to be a sequel to Rebels. It's like a successor to Rebels that's also in the work. How can we prove that what they're saying is true? Well, we just have to wait and see if we get a Bad Batch series and if we get a sequel to the Rebels series. If we don't get that within a 5-year time span, I'd even say 2 or 3, then we can come out and say, hey, your sources are crap. But when you come out and you say something like, hey, guys, George Lucas and Jon Favreau, they don't like The Mandalorian. Or they don't like, that'd be funny if Jon Favreau didn't like The Mandalorian. But when people come out and say, oh, Jon Favreau, George Lucas, they didn't like the Last Jedi. They really didn't like The Last Jedi. It's like, well, how can you prove that? How can you prove that Jon Favreau didn't have favoring opinions on The Last Jedi? Trust me, dude, I have sources. I can't prove that over a course of time. I can't wait 5 years for Jon Favreau to come out and say something about The Last Jedi. Want to know why? Because he's probably never going to do something like that. So there's a difference between information that's verifiable from these inside sources, like when Hollywood Reporter comes out and says, hey, David and Dan Benioff have been let go from the Star Wars trilogy. Well, then when you hear Kathy Kennedy and Alan Horn, people who are in the know about Star Wars, people who make the Star Wars stuff, and they say, yeah, these guys have been let go, then it's like, all right, now I have verification and I have validity to it. So my sources at Lucasfilm, there aren't many. All right, I'm not coming at you with all these inside scoops like some of these other guys. I have come out with 2 or 3 inside scoops. And one of them that I know came true was I think last year I came out and said that there was going to be a 3rd live action Star Wars series that's going to be coming to Disney Plus, because we had confirmed the Cassian Andor series was in the works, and then there was The Mandalorian. And then I came out and said, no, there's a 3rd one for sure, and it's going to start production sometime this summer in July. And this was in 2019. No, maybe it was actually earlier this year. Shit, now I can't even get my own dates ready. This is why I'm glad I'm sober this past month, because I don't remember anything from the past year or so. But basically, my source had told me that they're going to start production on a new live-action Star Wars show. Turns out it was the Kenobi series. That got delayed. It went from July to like January of 2021. So I think maybe I put out that video this year. But yeah, I've had people that I know who are in the know who I've actually met and talked to and verified what they do over there in the Star Wars world. So I always say, you know, take everything with a grain of salt, but I also would say I never lie to you guys because I just don't care. I just don't care enough to lie. It's clout for Star Wars. Who the hell cares about being cool in the Star Wars fan base? He also asks, how did the prequels destroy some of the things that the OT does? Mainly when it comes to the Force, midichlorians were a big slap in the face of the religious aspect of Star Wars, and the Force being something that connects us and binds us and really pulls the galaxy together. Also, kind of the way it set up the story. Vader goes from this terrifying figure into a whiny little 9-year-old boy. It's just, it didn't really go well at the time. David says, hi, Star Wars Only. I'm a huge fan of your videos. I have a question for you. If you were to pick a Star Wars movie to redo, which one would you do and why? See, these are the kind of interesting questions that really make you think, like, what could I possibly change? What's one movie you could change that would change the course of history for Star Wars and maybe do it for the better? And I would honestly say I would change The Phantom Menace. As soft of a heart as I have for that film now, I still think that The Phantom Menace really set up the stage for a lot of what the prequels did and could have been. And kind of like The Force Awakens set the sequels up, in a lot of people's opinion, for failure by, putting Luke on an island by himself. And just a lot of debate on what you can do. But when the beginning of a film, when you're starting a new trilogy, that first film speaks volumes. And that first film lays down the groundwork for what the story can be for the other two films following it. And I really think that The Phantom Menace is one of those films that could have been set up a lot better, that really missed the mark. So I would probably change The Phantom Menace, because I think if The Phantom Menace was a better film, I think if, let's say, we kept Darth Maul alive, let's say if we actually knew who the main protagonist was, we actually cared about the characters and set up a little bit more about this Darth Sidious guy working behind the scenes and all that stuff. If we had focused a little bit more on that, maybe The Phantom Menace would have produced a better story for the prequel trilogy, and therefore Lucas wouldn't have sold the franchise from the backlash that it got. If these films were received a lot better, I think the future of Star Wars would have been a lot different. Let's see. Do you think the Star Wars fan base is bad? Look at the release of the Snyder Cut fan base. Oh, if I think the Star Wars fan base is bad, look at the release of the Snyder Cut fan base. I don't know much about the whole Snyder Cut thing. I mean, I do know what had happened. He had a family tragedy. He left the film, and then they went with a different guy. And what happened with him? Basically, they reworked the film or something. I really haven't caught up with it. I don't understand the Zack Snyder fan base who come out and think this guy's like such a great movie maker. I saw Batman vs Superman in theaters. It's not good. I've seen it once and I never want to see it again. It's just not a good film. I will admit, I am excited to see the new version of Justice League, just because of the universe he was building and seeing what he can pull off with what he's got, the situation he's in. But also, I mean, man, I fell asleep during Justice League. My best friend from high school, I went to go see it with him, and he's a huge DC fan. And I think he got mad at me a little bit because I told him I didn't like the film, but I mean, I truly fell asleep watching Justice League. I mean, it just was not a good film. Do you think there is division in Lucasfilm? No, not entirely. Not entirely. And the reason I say that is because of this is a good one. We can put the little Disney Star Wars logo for that. The division over there at Lucasfilm, the fine division. Do you think there's like two opposing sides, like the rumored Kathy Kennedy versus Jon Favreau stuff? That only came from, yet again, that Doomcock guy and the people over there in the Phantom Menace who want it to sound like Lucasfilm's in a disaster and want things to sound awful at Star Wars. Lucasfilm is an interesting company because it's always been its own little entity. It's always been its own little studio and production company, even under Lucas. So I'm not going to say these are people who currently now work at Lucasfilm, but people who have worked at Lucasfilm that I know who have worked at Lucasfilm have said, not to me per se, but in general, that sometimes it feels like it's like its own isolated society, being on like places like Skywalker Ranch and whatnot. And I'm sure that's different now. I'm actually not sure what happened with Skywalker Ranch, if George Lucas still owns that, if that's still something Lucasfilm is running. But I do know that Lucasfilm is kind of like its own unique. You know how like sometimes you work at a different company and it's like you're in high school again. I've known a lot of people who work at Disney over there. Or when I lived in Orlando, I knew a lot of people who worked at Disney, and they always said that there's a lot of politics in it, and sometimes it feels like you're back in high school. I'm sure that's a lot what Lucasfilm is like. So is there people who disagree with each other over there at Lucasfilm? For sure, but there's not some opposing sides of division of some culture war or anything like that for Lucasfilm. Just because they've been running things the way they've been running things for so long, I can't imagine that there's going to be some internal war that's going on. I think Lucasfilm's fine. Hey fam, Star Wars only. Hope all is well. Are you open to the idea of High Republic getting a movie or video games? Now, what I do know a little bit about the High Republic is that I always say it the same, and I'll say it again. This word on the street, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, is that you will be getting a Star Wars: The High Republic game before you get a High Republic movie. And that's just because right now they've been saying, at least when it comes to Lucasfilm, when it came to the announcement of the High Republic, is that we're not going to be getting it anytime soon when it comes to movies or anything live action like that. Oh, see, I got a nice little thing for High Republic right there. Look at that. Look at that. The Star Wars: The High Republic. I'm excited to see what they do with this. A movie, I thought they would do a movie. I thought that would be kind of the next saga. I think if you're going to do another you have the Skywalker saga, I think we should get another Star Wars saga that's maybe like 1 through 6 films long and maybe a trilogy or two in there. We don't know. We can do a lot. High Republic wouldn't be a bad route to explore, but I could also imagine Lucasfilm spending this may sound long, but we're in this for the long haul, next 5 to 10 years building up the High Republic era, and then we have a video game or two set in that era and in that timeline. And then eventually we get a film in like 2030 something that's about the High Republic. So movie, not sure. I'm open to that idea. I'm more open to the idea of a movie than anything else. But I also think that a video game is in the near future. And I would go so far as to say I know that there is a video game in the near future. Lucasfilm is divided into light and dark side. I mean, who's the light side then? I mean, who's the light and who's the dark side? No matter what you say about the people over there at Lucasfilm, it truly is just people trying to make Star Wars and just trying to do what they can to make good Star Wars. You can agree or disagree if they've really hit the mark. But one thing I also want you to remember is a lot of people act like there is like this whole culture war between Lucasfilm, the light and dark side of it or whatever, and Lucasfilm being at odds with each other. One thing I want to kind of bring up as well is that Lucasfilm's notoriously is the same ideology. The progressive is the terminology I would use. So I wouldn't imagine there being some kind of internal conflict over there at Lucasfilm between like the right wing people and the left wing people. I'm just confident they're all making Star Wars. It's a job. I know this past week there's been a lot of like not leaked information, but rumors and what would you even call it? What would you even call it? The debacles. Just there's a guy who works over there at I guess we can get into a little bit of a story time with Star Wars only here for EA Star Wars Squadrons. There's a guy over there. Actually, we'll put up the EA thing. It's been a really big thing on Twitter recently, and I hate saying that because it's Twitter. Let me see if I can find it real quick so I can actually show you guys what I'm talking about. There's a guy who works at EA Star Wars, and I think he recently has been working on Star Wars Squadrons. And fun fact, I met the guy. I actually met the guy in this whole debacle thing. But there's this girl who also worked at EA Star Wars, and I assume they dated. And she basically came out with this report in this tweet thread saying that it was a very abusive relationship. I don't think it was physically, but mentally or something. It was pretty bad. I'm going through this one person's Twitter that I finally found it. All right. Sorry. I gotta screenshot it and then I gotta put it up here for you guys at the same time. It's just trying to show you what I'm talking about so you guys can have a frame of reference. But yeah, it's a little disturbing, some of the stuff that's been coming out for EA Star Wars over the past week. The Star Wars Squadrons reveal was great, don't get me wrong, but this itself was kind of not great. So let me save this real quick and put it up here. Boom. Almost there. Sorry about the wait. Boom. Just one order. See if I can get it. There we go. There we go. All right, I'm getting it up on screen right now. Boom. All right. So the girl right here, Claire Post Marlotte, is that a play on Post Malone? Stribling, I don't know how to say her last name. I apologize if I'm getting that wrong. I need to take away this whole Lucasfilm dark side versus light side thing. There we go. I know this problem appeared at EA this past week, where this guy Tyler Westhouse is apparently he is the former boyfriend of this Claire lady, and they both worked at EA and worked in that little Star Wars, I guess, aspect of it. I'm trying to see what this guy Alex Kane, who used to write for Star Wars, also kind of commented on it a little bit and said that he knew him. But yeah, this guy at EA Star Wars, he apparently was very abusive and manipulative towards this girl who was also working there. This guy Alex Kane used to work at StarWars.com. He used to write for them. Also, spoke out about it. I do know that the guy they're talking about worked at PlayStation. And fun fact, I actually met the guy they're talking about in this because when I was at Star Wars Celebration, I don't know how to explain it. I was at a like dinner place. This is weird to say after one of the recent questions I just got. I actually was going to have dinner in a meeting with a source at the restaurant we were at. And I ran into two people who I'd been talking throughout the week who also were like, hey, yeah, let's, why don't you stay with us and get dinner? And I got dinner, and this guy, Tyler, sat down with us. And Alex talks about it right here when he talks about the awful behavior of this guy, Tyler, who worked at EA and formerly worked at Sony. He worked at PlayStation. And that's how I met Tyler. He told me he'd worked at PlayStation. And so apparently he went over there, worked at EA and worked with the EA Squadrons. But a big debacle, apparently, where Alex had this guy, Alex Kane, apparently reported him as well and reported the behavior of Tyler to the powers that be, I guess, the HR department at Lucasfilm or EA, and nothing happened. Alex is still working at EA as far as we know. I know he deleted his Twitter, but I had dinner with that guy. I mean, he literally was sitting to my left, and a fun story about that is I feel bad because of some of the stuff he told me. I can't act like I remember everything that happened that night. I was high as a kite. I had recently bought one of those wax pins the night before, and the night before is when I got pretty baked with a Star Wars actor. So the next day I just had the pin. We were at the restaurant we were eating, and I just kept hitting it the entire time we were all talking, and I was so stupid. I was 19. I was a younger man. I'd still do it today. I'm not going to act like I wouldn't, but no, yeah, Tyler was a very interesting guy and apparently an incredibly awful boyfriend to his girlfriend. Then they both worked at EA, and Alex Kane, who formerly worked at StarWars.com, talks a little bit about it here. So go look up that tweet thread just to look at some of the BS that is going on over there at EA and the behind the scenes stuff. You're always either high or drunk. That is not true. I have been a sober man for the past month. I have not had a drink and not have a smoke since I got back from Orlando, maybe the day after I got back from Orlando. So I've been doing really good. Been real focused on the Star Wars stuff. So that's one of the reasons that things I think have been looking better on a production standpoint for the channel. Nope, same comment. Should Kevin Feige direct an Old Republic movie? No, he should not. I hate to be that guy, man, but have you ever seen a Kevin Feige movie? He's a producer. He's a producer for Marvel. He's so busy already with Marvel. Do you think he has time to come over here and actually make a Star Wars film? Not only produce one, but actually direct a Star Wars film? I'm a little fascinated with this obsession on Kevin Feige by Star Wars fans. Don't think he's awful, but I also don't like the Marvel films either. I mean, the Marvel films are very generic. It's the same story over and over again, but told with a different character name. So the idea of him coming in to direct a Star Wars movie, mainly an Old Republic movie, I'm not on board with. What I am on board with, though, is Kevin Feige coming in to produce 2 to 3 Star Wars films. And the first film, right now we know he's producing one film alongside Kathy Kennedy, but I think he should plan out a trilogy or the next saga. Not plan it out himself and be the one to do it, but show the implementations that they used on Marvel and implement those things into Star Wars as well, and say, here's how we planned out Marvel Phase 4 or whatever. Here's how you should plan out the next 4 or 5 Star Wars films. You know, have 1 or 2 of them kind of like spinoffs, but they're really like prequels or middle films, and they all tie in together with these episodic kind of films. You could do a lot with that, and you could do a lot with someone like Kevin Feige. I just don't want him directing a Star Wars film. And that actually is a good question on this next one of what do you think about Star Wars becoming more like Marvel, cinematic universe, directors from Marvel's comics, etc. One thing that people give Kathy Kennedy a lot of crap for, one thing I loved about her is that a year or two ago, maybe back in 2017 as well, she said that Star Wars is not Marvel and that the Marvel formula will not work about sorry, I was reading some of the comments, but the Marvel formula will not work with Star Wars. And she's right. And I think we see that a little bit, having these films come out yearly. It was a lot at the same time. And some people say that there's no such thing as Star Wars fatigue because look at Marvel. No, there is a thing called Star Wars fatigue. Star Wars is supposed to be special. It's supposed to be a unique experience. It's supposed to be a big culture event. And maybe Kevin Feige can help bring that back and make that happen. But making Star Wars like Marvel and coming out with a new film every few months, I don't think it would work. Now, in terms of making it a cinematic universe with a lot of the stories tie in, and there's this big overarching storyline that we're going for, I could go with that. And word on the street is right now that they're doing that at Lucasfilm. Is that since we're not getting another Star Wars film until 2024, I think that they're going to do a bunch of Star Wars Disney Plus series on Disney Plus, these live action shows, and they're all going to tie into each other. There's going to be like 4 or 5 different shows that are different characters, but the storylines all tie in just a little bit, but not too much. All right, let's look at some of the comments here. We're going to wrap up in probably about 10 minutes. If you got any really pressing questions, by all means. Let's go through. Star Wars movies are better than the MCU by far, by a long shot. Star Wars only, I'm getting worried that hearing that you're getting baked often. I'm not getting baked often though. I haven't. Like I said, man, it's either been a month now or 3 weeks, and I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it. My favorite kind of pizza is cheese. I'm gonna be honest, you can't beat the classics. I'm a picky ass eater, and cheese pizza. If you can't make that right, then you don't deserve anything else on that pizza. Have you seen the Geeks and Gamers George Lucas horrified by Disney's? And it's probably just going to be Star Wars. No, I haven't. Guys, I love the guys over there at Geeks and Gamers. Jeremy's I'd consider Jeremy a friend. A nice guy. I was glad to meet him. But I don't believe a lot of some of that stuff that comes out. It's all the same thing. It's all the kind of same narrative against Disney Star Wars. And hey, I'm all for it. If you know, sure. But I'm pretty confident this video you're talking about is just one of them, probably Jeremy, just doing a reaction to a report or a rumor from someone like Doomcock. And so I hear so many different Star Wars opinions every day. I do a lot of my work in Star Wars as it is with the Instagram and YouTube now. It's just hard to keep up with everyone else's Star Wars reactions and opinions, and a lot of this kind of conspiracy theory rumor stuff. I don't pay 2 cents attention of it. I don't really care. Do you think is SWTOR a mistake? Nah, SWTOR was fine. SWTOR was fine. Do you personally think Kathy Kennedy is trying to push an agenda? No, not really. I mean, I know you're going to hear that she is. I just think she's a lady who got put in a very particular situation where George Lucas said, hey, I want to give up Star Wars and I want you to helm the next films, the next era of Star Wars, and kind of be the passing of the torch for me. I think you're a great producer and I want you to run this business for me and run this company. And she was brought in at Lucasfilm right before they sold to Disney. So she was put in a very, very rough situation with Disney saying, good job, Kathy. We're glad to have you on as president. Now you need to come out with a new film in a new trilogy in about 3 years. And then we need another film next year and the year after that and year after that. So she was put in a very, very tight and rough situation. I don't think she's trying to push an agenda. I don't know, consciously. I think she's subconsciously pushing an agenda, as in her own idea of what Star Wars is and should be. As in, let's say some of the things people have said over there at Lucasfilm was they want a more diverse cast of characters. I think that's something that Kathy Kennedy really thinks belongs in Star Wars and really was something that's important to her. Now, that may not be important to a lot of other Star Wars fans, and to some sense, I don't get it at all. I understand saying I don't want a narrative pushed in my Star Wars. I get saying I don't want political ideologies pushed in my Star Wars. But if she has a story agenda that she's going for, maybe, I mean, let's be honest. Kathy is a very busy person. I highly doubt she cares that much about Star Wars to say, I want to put my own 2 cents on what the story should be in it, and it has to follow this guideline. I know she's given a lot of creative freedom to the people who work in the franchise. You look at something like the High Republic, you get, I mean, it's clear with something like that, there's a lot of creative freedom for those authors. But I also think that I think she was just put in a really odd situation. It's hard to talk about her and come off as fair and also give proper criticism as well, because Kathy Kennedy is one of those figures in Star Wars who's very polarizing when she honestly isn't that polarizing. If you listen to the things she says and the kind of person she is in the interviews, she's a very nice person. And I have no moral problems with Kathy Kennedy. I don't like the way she's been producing the Star Wars films for sure, but I don't think that I don't like the constant complaining against her that has come out over. I got it for a little bit, but now it's become a little too much for me. Matthew Kelly says, did you manage to read my comment in your latest video about EA showing my top 10 suggestions list from Watch Mojo about Empire Strikes Back I'm working on? No, buddy, I'm sorry I didn't. There's a lot of comments that I scroll through, and it's hard to keep up with all of them. The Star Wars movies George made actually had more of a political agenda than Disney's. Well, if you look at the prequels, for sure. I mean, definitely for the prequels. I really think. I mean, I don't know. It's define which film puts out a certain political agenda. You have the originals, which are very anti-authoritarian. You have the prequels, which is very much about the Nixon era, about political corruption. And then you have the sequel trilogy. And in terms of politicalness, I really don't know what the agenda there is other than more diversity. So that's that. I could kind of see that in some sense. Ben Bamboo says, Geeks and Gamers, The Star Wars Girl, Nerdrotic, Midnight's Edge, etc., all driving that right-wing rhetoric. I mean, I don't know about all that. I don't know anything. I don't know about all those people. I know Geeks and Gamers. I met the Star Wars Girl. I think I've met her. I haven't met Nerdrotic or Midnight's Edge. I don't really. I might have seen one or two of their videos, but I don't pay attention. The right-wing rhetoric, I think that's just a culture war that the Star Wars fandom is kind of going through. I'm a very open, right-wing, leaning conservative. I consider myself an 80s conservative and a little bit more libertarian in some sense. You know, Reagan, that's my boy. So the whole right-wing rhetoric, I can say I don't see that because of my biases to being someone who is more right-leaning. But I also understand if that's what they're. I don't know. I don't know how to give a good take on that because I try not to push any right-wing rhetoric on my channel, and even though I'm an open, conservative guy, I don't try to push politics like that because this is Star Wars, and no offense, who cares? Everyone's got an opinion on politics, and half these people, even the people who are involved in politics, don't know a lot about politics. Why do a lot of fans dislike Pablo Hidalgo even before his Doggy Rise of Skywalker book that he made? I think a lot of people didn't like Pablo is because he was very interactive with the fans on social media and combative in a way. He was one of those guys where it was like, if you call him an a-hole, he's going to come right back at you and say something either along the lines or similar to that. And then for some reason, people can dish it out but can't take it, where he would come back at the Star Wars fans and they'd cry foul after calling him awful names and whatnot. I get both sides. I liked Pablo Hidalgo. I miss him. He even, you know what? Fun story about Pablo Hidalgo on Star Wars Only. He got me good one time. He put up something. Someone had. I made a video about who's going to be the Lucasfilm president after 2021. Someone had retweeted it on Twitter, tagged Pablo, and he said something along the lines of like, "Oh, these chuds must think we plan out all the content at the beginning of every year." And I replied to Pablo and I said, "No, Pablo, I know that's not how this works. I'm just saying that here are the potential candidates. If there's anything," I asked him, I was like, "If you see any errors in my video, please correct them and I will, come out and make an update and make a correction." And he said, "No, won't waste my time watching the video." He said something about like YouTube being a cesspool that can't take criticism or opinions. And so when he replied with that, I replied with just the picture of Palpatine, or maybe it was the GIF saying ironic. And I knew that would kind of get him because, if you can't tell the joke there of like him, it's like calling the kettle black. Twitter's also very against differing opinions and can't take criticism or anything like that. So Pablo, I think he got a little mad at me, and he came back with a very, very hard question to answer that I know none of you can answer either right now. I feel like me and Pablo are one of the few people in the world who can answer it. And that's not a brag. That just means we're overly religious about some of the Star Wars history. But he asked me one question, and he said, name all 5 Lucasfilm presidents. George Lucas is not a president of Lucasfilm. He's never been. And I knew that because Pablo Hidalgo's right. Lucas was never president. He was a sole proprietor. It was a difference of owning the company. But I replied with 4 Lucasfilm presidents, and I replied saying, Pablo, it's a trick question. There's only been 4 Lucasfilm presidents. There was Charles Weber, Douglas Norby, not Norbley, Charles Weber, Douglas Norby. No. I said Charles Weber, Gordon Radley, Michelin Chow, and then Kathy Kennedy. And then he came back and he said, what about Douglas Norby? I had missed that guy. He was the one right after Gordon Radley who created LucasArts back in the 80s. So Pablo got me good. And he corrected me. So good for Pablo. I like that, though. He was a sport about it. He wasn't an overall asshole to me. I wasn't trying to be an ass towards him. When you can't hear someone's tone in the text or in a conversation, it changes things. It really changes things. There's a Key and Peele skit called text message confusion. Watch that video and it perfectly summarizes the problems people have in those kind of situations. But yeah, Pablo Hidalgo, he homeboy done schooled me on Twitter once, and I can live to tell the tale. Good for him. Thank you very much for the super chat donation comment star. He said, should there be a World Between Worlds movie? Now, a movie just set on that idea from Rebels. If you guys remember Star Wars Rebels, they had a World Between Worlds where you can go through different timelines, basically. I don't think there should be a movie about that, but I do think that it should be further explored, and maybe even in a live-action sense, maybe in the Kenobi series, maybe in one of the future Mandalorian seasons we could possibly explore the World Between Worlds, because that's a very, very intriguing concept introduced in Rebels, the idea that you can... It takes away time from Star Wars, and instead of making chronologically having a linear aspect of time, and this is where we get into physics, which is not even close to my realm of expertise, but it does take that out, and I think it adds a lot to the story. I was a little upset with it being Ezra who discovered this, but I also think that this is worthy of exploration, maybe in the High Republic era. Actually, yeah, that's... You know what, Comment Star? I think you got to have a good idea that you should pitch to the High Republic authors. Maybe not the movie aspects, because I think that would confuse general audiences, but I would love to see that explored a little bit more in the books. Big shout out to Star Wars 1980. He's a guy on Instagram who has run an Instagram account for many years, and he's also got a YouTube channel. So me and him have been very cordial over the past... Jesus, I don't know how long I've known you now. But anyways, Star Wars 1980, thanks for watching. He asked, what do you actually think will happen with Mandalorian Season 2? And do you think any of the rumors are true at all? Yeah, I think a lot of the rumors are true. I think what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot of introduction of different characters in Mandalorian Season 2 just to catapult them into their own series. And the reason I say that is because I think Lucasfilm looks at Season 1 of The Mandalorian, sees how successful it is, and goes, okay, we cannot let this opportunity go to waste. It's going to be a long while before we do any Star Wars films. Why don't we use Mandalorian Season 2? We'll introduce characters like Ahsoka Tano. We'll introduce characters like Boba Fett, and we'll get them familiarized with the audience that's watching The Mandalorian. And since it's such a big audience, we're going to show them these characters, and they're going to ask themselves, the audience is going to ask themselves, what happens to Boba Fett after Mandalorian Season 2? What happens to Ahsoka after Mandalorian Season 2? I want to see these characters' stories progress and go different routes. I think what Lucasfilm is going to do is say, here are the characters in Season 2, Boba Fett, Ahsoka. Now we're going to give them their own series on Disney+. One's coming out in 2021, one's coming out in 2022. And they're going to use that to fill the gap between 2019 Star Wars film, The Rise of Skywalker, and the 2024 Star Wars film from Taika Waititi, who is directing that film. I think that's why we're going to get a lot of these cameos, and a lot of the rumors about Mandalorian Season 2 are going to come true, is I think Lucasfilm was using it to spin off a bunch of Disney Plus series and live action series for Star Wars to kind of fill that gap of time that we have between episodes 9 and whatever episode comes out in 2024. If it's episode 1 of a new saga or trilogy, or if it's episode 10 of the Skywalker saga. I doubt that will happen, but yeah, that's my 2 cents on Mandalorian season 2. I'm pretty excited about seeing that. When does Star Wars ends in terms of story? I feel like Disney is going to keep adding things to Star Wars story after the last film, and it feels like it will never end. Ring-a-ding-ding! This will be the last question and probably the last thing we'll talk about. You got it, buddy. Star Wars will never end. That's the kicker in all of this, my friend. The story is never ending. It's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. You know what I can do with those words alone? We can do anything, and we can do everything. I mean, Star Wars truly has a bright but yet confusing future. Maybe the story does end, but not in a conclusive way where it's like, hey, this is episode 12. After this, we will never make another Star Wars story again. I don't think we're ever going to get to that point. I think maybe we're going to get to an end of the story in the chronological timeline of Star Wars canon, where they say beyond this point, it's just nothing but peace and happiness. Because that's one thing I do hope we get to at some point in the Star Wars story, and I don't think we ever will after what happened with the Skywalker saga. But people forget that Star Wars is a fairy tale. There's supposed to be that happily ever after ending. I mean, when are we ever going to get that happily ever after ending in Star Wars? I have no earthly idea. But I think one day we're going to have to get to that point because, I don't know, sometimes it does feel like there's going to be some finality to the story, and I feel like one day we are going to have to reach that. And yeah, maybe one day we're going to get the ends of that story, and maybe one day that will be in 2077 when Star Wars hits 100 years old. But beyond that, I really don't know. I really don't know. But I think that's all the time we have for today, my friends. I'll give you a little update on the documentary Star Wars After George Lucas, coming to you December 18th this year. Written, directed, edited, produced, basically all done by your boy Star Wars Only. I may be bringing in a writer or two or someone to come edit it and whatnot. We'll think about it. You know, I'm still in the writing stages of it. I'm still researching it, but I'm having a great time. I love the thumbnail or the little cover picture of it right there. I just think that looks gorgeous. I think it looks beautiful. I think it looks great. And I think, as the man, the myth, the legend himself said,
I may have gone too far in a few places.
That's the feeling maybe after Lucas sold Star Wars. But you know what I think about this documentary?
That's great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be great. And I hope you guys enjoy the documentary when it does come out. I'm working on it day by day. And yeah, maybe we'll have another one coming out next year. Maybe we'll have another one in 2022 just because, well, there's not going to be a Star Wars film in 2022. So thank you guys for joining. Thank you guys for waiting for Star Wars After George Lucas, the next documentary by your boy, Star Wars Only. Hope you guys enjoyed this stream. I will see you all next time, and may the Force be with you.